Thanks, mate. Let's wind it back. Where were you before we get into the House of Casa and Multisig and all the good stuff? Where were you as a young man? Where were you growing up? And is there any kind of story that you can think of in your past that you can draw a straight line to now? Now you've like been in the rabbit hole for so long, that you kind of like primed you, if you know what I mean, for when you first entered the rabbit hole.
Yeah, so I grew up in the Midwest, and this isn't necessarily one specific instance, but it's just kind of a trend over my entire childhood, I guess you could say, young adult life. Grew up in the Midwest, and I always hated spending money. And, I didn't get an allowance or anything like that. But I did always have jobs going back to being pretty young. And I never wanted to spend the money that I got from those jobs. I always saved it, put it away in my bank account. And yeah, it wasn't that much money. Like I was making minimum wage, scooping ice cream, basically. But it was something that, to me, that money had a lot of value because I'd earned it at my job. And I think that was something that my parents from really early on also really instilled in me as important. Like it's important to work hard to earn your income. And that's why I didn't, just get like a weekly allowance or something like that, like I said. So when I think it's been a more recent thing where people have started talking about Bitcoin as savings technology, but that's something that I've kind of connected the dots between, where it's like Bitcoin encourages you to save money, and saving money has always been something that's like been part of my, DNA and upbringing. And so that's something that if I think of what in my childhood connects really well with Bitcoin today, I think it's probably something along those lines, because I didn't grow up in some country that had rampant inflation or anything like that. Like I've been very lucky and privileged in my life. And so I don't quite have as exciting a story there as most people, but I think that what really resonates for me is the savings side of things.
Yeah, it's true. Coming to the realization for a lot of people that it is this amazing savings technology is unlocking a whole new. That this could be the thing that unlocks the people entering this next bull run. 2017, I felt it was all number go up. All the noobs coming in and the people finding it and going crazy was all just number go up, number go up, number go up.
Yep.
And
Yep.
look what happened. A big percentage of those guys got their hands burnt and got shaken out on the way back down and never wanted to come back. But with what's kind of happened since then, with the amount of education and the geopolitical kind of where we are right now in the world of all this nonsense going on, getting all the way down to zero, and in many cases negative interest rates, people are asking a hell of a lot more different questions than they were back in 2017. So
they're asking the real questions.
Language, right? And the language around savings technology, I think, is key. I think there's two aspects to this: savings technology and making Sats the standard, which is because trying to take away that fear of the high sticker price. Do you have any kind of thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think it's something that is interesting for people to wrap their minds around the first time they think about, like, oh, Bitcoin is so expensive. And it's a relative thing depending on how you're looking at it from a units basis. But then it's also just when you make a mindset shift, and Sats the standard to me means two different things. It's like you talk about Sats more often as a unit, but then it's also about having Bitcoin as a standard of what you actually value your own savings in. And so this gets into some of what I think is going to be, frankly, further off, potentially, years, decades from now, hyper Bitcoinization style talk. But I think when people really start thinking about their savings in terms of something like Bitcoin, and they're not just thinking about Bitcoin as a way to get more dollars, that's when they make that Sats the standard flip, where they're then thinking, well, I'm just saving my money in Bitcoin and I intend to hold it there forever, rather than I intend to hold it there until it goes up in price and then cash out. Because that's when you're thinking about it just as a short-term investment is when it seems expensive. But when you're thinking about it as a long-term savings technology, that's when it seems, well, if you really think about it, it's cheap as it is right now, but the actual price of it just matters a little bit less. It still matters because you have to buy things in dollars or pounds or whatever, right? But it matters a little bit less, and that's something where I think Sats the standard and savings technology just kind of starts to come in.
Yeah, it's been great to watch that narrative. I was talking with a boomer friend today, talking her through, how to set up an account over here in France and on which service to use. And like soon as the sticker price comes up, I'm like, what do you mean it's this much money?
Yeah.
But thankfully the service we were using, big shout out, Stack and Sat, they have on their landing page how many sats you can buy. It's like 153 euros gets you 1 million sats. And she's like, whoa, 1 million sats.
Yeah, that's a lot, right?
This works. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like this sat standard thing is going to be real key going forward. So it's a bit of mental math though. I think we need a quick kind of app out there. I'm sure there is one if I'm doing anyone a disservice, or someone can point me towards a quick sats converter, because
that's one of those things where it is tough to do it in your head, and you almost need to have like people, all of the different companies that have products in the industry have to start offering a view your balance in sats type of thing, which has its own kind of UX problems and weird things you have to deal with. Like suddenly you got to show like 8 zeros on a screen or something like that and figure out how to make that look good. But I think it's something that as we start to see more people offering that as an option, people will be thinking about the price in sats a little bit more. But yeah, it's a lot more natural right now to think about the price in Bitcoin as the main unit.
Yeah. Okay, let's go back. You're growing up Midwest. You're scooping ice cream. You hate the fact that you're ever gonna kind of have to part with your money. What was the family business? What was your father doing, and what kind of lessons do you think you learned from him along the way?
Yeah, well, so my dad worked in advertising. My mom worked in healthcare, and I think that what I actually learned from both of them was the most important thing was just working hard is how you get ahead in life, and things don't necessarily come to you just for free, or at least the best things don't come to you for free. And so I think that was the biggest lesson that I learned growing up. I always had chores to do around the house, and it was just expected as being.
We have a visitor. We've been interrupted. The interrogation's about to start. Lauren's finished her French lesson. Bonjour, Lauren.
Hi. Bonjour.
Hi, Lauren. Bonjour. Good to meet you.
Good to meet you too. Okay. Okay, so my question is, how did you find Bitcoin? Straight to the question.
That's a good question. We haven't covered that one yet, but I feel like it's a good one to cover. I originally found Bitcoin because I, as a lot of people did, got interested in seeing the price go up, and it was like, whoa, what's going on with this investment that is just skyrocketing in price? And so I started learning more about it after that point, and that was where I really started to understand. I actually came in through more of the technical side of it. So a lot of people come in through the economic side where they say, oh, there's only 21 million Bitcoin. It's an inflation hedge, which is awesome. Just wasn't how I originally came in. I really was looking at the technical side of a decentralized network that nobody controls and where individuals have the real power and the ownership. And I got really interested in private keys because of that. And this gets more into like the why Casa side of things. But I was looking at this and thinking that if anybody is going to save any meaningful amount of money in Bitcoin, they are taking this huge risk that if they lose a private key, they lose all of their money. And so this kind of compounded as something for me that was a really interesting and unique challenge for Bitcoin. And so layering on kind of being interested from a technical and decentralized network side, and then also the challenge of solving the user experience around private keys and helping people to actually be able to store their life savings if they want to in Bitcoin without having to worry about losing it due to one mistake was something that was really interesting to me. And so that was how I really got started in Bitcoin and started digging in and working in it.
That's just kind of cool, because then you just see that coming, and then you start learning about Bitcoin, and then you know what's happening.
Yeah, exactly. How did you learn about Bitcoin first?
He did not stop talking about it.
There's a trend here between your two daughters, Daniel.
Yeah. My wife and my other daughter and my son will probably say the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any more questions for Nick?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, cool. You'll say goodbye?
Beer?
Yeah, it must be. Yeah, it's 6:30.
Is it a little one?
Yeah, sure. Just a little
Okay.
one. Let's not go too crazy. Any? Yeah, there's some in the fridge.
Okay, yes. Bye.
Bye. Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Have a great podcast.
Thank you.
You always want a beer.
I know. Okay. I have no idea what we were talking about before that. Oh, your parents. Advertising, healthcare, instilling a good work ethic. Nothing falls out of the sky. Money doesn't grow on trees. That kind of upbringing, which that's the kind of upbringing I had as well. And my wife. And I think, we're very lucky in the fact that we had that upbringing, because I look around at some of my old peers and friends and colleagues, and like the frivolity with their money is just it's like a disease, an absolute disease. And to give you an example, we're clearly different ages. When our generation were turning around 17 or 18, we were mailed on our birthdays, mailed out of the blue by banks or by credit card companies, cards, preloaded credit cards into our homes with our names on, all embossed and preloaded with like 150 pounds or something. Little did we know how... Oh my God, little did we know how under attack we were. And I look back on it now, and I have, some shocking examples of some close friends of mine at the time. Thank you, Lauren. That were just, it was like a drug. There's no other way to explain it. It was like a drug. And of course, they would go, and the 150 pounds that was preloaded on the thing would be gone within a day. And then an extra 100 on top. And then the week after that, an extra 100. They get to the end of the month. And you'd be saying to these guys, like, what are you doing? Like, you realize you have to pay this back. Yeah, I'll get around to it. And then they don't. And then it's what, like, even back then, it was 21.4, 24.5%. Like, guys.
Yeah, it's a lot of interest.
It was unreal.
I mean, that was something that I was always taught growing up, was like, yeah, fine. Use a credit card, get the points that they offer you, all of that. That's great. But you always pay it off every single month, and then you never have interest, right? But when you start accruing the interest side of things is when you start getting into the hole, and that's when it hurts. So you use a credit card, but you treat it like a debit card, and you only spend what you have, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I feel so bad for the people that manage to get themselves into all kinds of debt, and then along just that next wave, like just a year or two after us, that's when university fees started becoming like ridiculous, and there was
Yeah.
no digging your way out of this trap, none, and it was just pretty bad. So anyway, you got down the rabbit hole from the technical standpoint.
Yep.
What year was that? Do you remember? Or you don't have to share if you don't want to. It's entirely up to you.
No, it's okay. It was like late 2016, early 2017. So it was during the last bull run really was where I came into Bitcoin. So, I don't have some massive stash of Bitcoin hiding away so don't come after me, anybody. But, I've got I've been kind of stacking since that point, and it's something where for me it's definitely more of like a here for the revolution type thing, and it's something that's super interesting, and that's why I've been I started getting interested in it in that late 2016 early 2017, really started actually working in it in 2018, and so then it's been a few years that I've been working in Bitcoin. But it's something that is just, as everybody knows who's gone down the rabbit hole, you get interested in it and then suddenly you're spending all of your time on it. And so then it's like, well, I might as well just have my full-time job in this space, because I'm already basically doing a full-time job reading and learning about Bitcoin.
What were you doing? What was the job? So I'm guessing you'd gone through university and left, and
Yep.
got yourself a little career on the go, and then along comes Bitcoin and big change. And I'd actually like to get into how you managed that transition, because it's one of the most requested questions I get in my DMs. Like, how the hell do I start working in this space? I'm trying to figure out myself, guys. But
Yeah. That's a
what
good
were you
question.
doing?
So
What?
I actually started my career in finance. I was an investment banker for a while, and did that for a few years before I decided it was just too much of a soul-sucking existence, and so decided to move into like building companies and products. And I joined a startup in the travel tech space, and I was there for a couple of years. And that was when, like, while I was there, I really got interested in Bitcoin. And so the way that I actually made the jump from just a normal tech job into Bitcoin was, first I started writing, and I started writing about different. I actually kind of originally started off with Ethereum and made my way into Bitcoin the way that a lot of people do, of starting with like, oh, there's all these different cryptocurrencies that you can have, and then realizing, oh, the simplicity of Bitcoin is really the most important and interesting thing that's going on in this space. But I was writing for a while and just having some decent success just writing articles that were basically explaining technical concepts in a easy to understand way. And so, like, this was during the period when there was a lot of like white papers coming out. And so I would read through a white paper and then try and like summarize it in a way that made sense and add some like goofy drawings to it with my terrible drawing ability. But it was basically just about like creating something, right? And trying to do a good job of it. And then people started to see it and started to pay attention. And then for fun, I decided to participate in a hackathon. And that was when I really just was like, okay, I need to just put myself out there and do something in this space. And so in that hackathon, I went in and met a team ahead of time over Slack. Didn't know any of these people, but they were awesome people to work with. We did a project around private keys. And so we said, I was already kind of onto this idea of like private keys really are terrible user experience and are super anxiety inducing. I don't want to write down this seed phrase that's 24 random words that I put on a piece of paper and then have to figure out how to make sure I never lose it. That's just crazy. And so we went into this hackathon with a idea to allow people to split their private key into multiple pieces and then give each of those pieces to a different person. And if they ever lost their hardware wallet or their phone or whatever their wallet was on, they could go talk to those people and get those pieces back and then recreate that private key. And so this was using what was called Shamir's secret sharing. And there's quite a few products out there that actually do this today, like Trezor's made an implementation within the last year or so. And I think this hackathon project was one of the very first like implementations of this for private keys. So we ended up winning that hackathon. And then after that, I got connected with the Casa team who were really just getting started. And so joined and helped build out our product from the very beginning through to actually launching it like midway through 2018.
Cool. Wow. You're very brave. You mentioned investment banking and Ethereum. So
bring on all the haters.
That's my background too. I was not on the banking side. I was on the brokerage side. 18 years in foreign exchange, and part of my shitcoiny past was diversifying in air quotes. Listeners, don't listen to that advice in Ethereum and Dash at the time. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of people who like to pretend that they've been pure Bitcoin maximalists all the time. But actually, I think the majority of people go through a phase where you think there's value in other things and there's going to be a ton of different cryptocurrencies that are all wildly successful. And then as you learn more, you start to realize, man, like the vast majority of the value is going to accumulate in Bitcoin. And so that's where I should be spending my time. So I don't think there's no judgment for people that had a shitcoin phase. I think the majority of people have had that in their life.
No doubt. And coming from such a legacy system like investment banking, or for myself in foreign exchange markets, and having looked at stocks and shares for many years, that I think what altcoins or shitcoins lends to somebody that's coming from that lens is a figurehead, like a CEO. And that's what we used to, right? Yeah, for me, when I was entering the rabbit hole, Bitcoin was like all weird and shit. And like, what? It came out of thin air. And who's this Satoshi Nakamoto? Does he exist?
Yeah.
Doesn't he exist? Well, there's something over here where, at least that has a CEO, and at least that has, guys I can learn about and what are his past. Because that's what you do when you're looking at a stock, right? If you invest in a stock, first thing you do is look at the C-suite, and then you look at their track record and whatever else. So I think that's kind of an easy trap for people coming from that world to fall into. But which investment bank was it? Do you mind me asking?
Yeah, sure. I worked for Lazard originally.
And what was the role? Could you? Because a lot of Zoomers listen to the show, and I'm sure many of them are trying to get into finance in some way, shape, or form. I just try and lift the lid on what that world is actually like once you get there. Could you just give people listening a kind of blow by blow of what you're doing?
Yeah, so I worked for Lazard. This was my job fresh out of college as an analyst. And basically what I was doing was doing financial models and a lot of like presentations. Basically, I was working in the Lazard really does only M&A. They do M&A and some bankruptcy stuff, but advising. But I was in the M&A side in oil and gas specifically. And so really, it was a great experience. Like you work crazy hours, 100-hour weeks kind of thing at the worst times. I think my worst week ever was like 120 hours, which was terrible. But the experience that you get out of it in terms of what you get to see, like getting to be in the room with company C-suites talking about their business, is really invaluable. And you just, by sheer number of hours worked, you end up getting about 4 years of experience in 2 years' time. But at the same time, it's, like I said, soul sucking. And so I knew that I didn't want to spend my entire career doing that. I actually went into private equity after that. And because that's kind of the path you take, you go investment banking, then you go into private equity. And I thought that was just going to be my path. And I was going to take the standard kind of finance path to getting rich, basically. And then realized that it just, to me, the work in doing it every day wasn't worthwhile for the money that I was getting. So I ended up taking a pay cut by half to go work in startups, and couldn't have been happier doing it. So I think while I learned a lot, it wasn't the long-term path for me. And I think that's totally fine. You know, everybody has their own path.
Yeah. I think it's really underestimated the toll it takes on your body. When you're working in that pressurized, stressful environment, obviously the hours that you put in, but the lack of sleep, the lack of exercise, the lack of nutrition, the highs, the lows, you know, if a deal goes through, euphoric high, and you know, if you miss the deal, like in the most depressing low, these are all chemicals the whole time firing around in your body, and it's a toll. And the amount of people I've seen burn out or affect their lives in such negative ways, you know, it forms addictions in across all vices. It's ruined marriages. And at the end of the day, for what? Yeah, like you said, to get rich in fiat terms. And now we have Bitcoin, which is just like, we all see it as this life raft and parallel system. So, okay, startup. You get into a startup, then the hackathon, and you find the Casa team. What was that like, making that transition to finally getting a chance to focus all of your energy on Bitcoin, which is pretty much what you were doing in your spare time anyway? And what advice would you give to those people listening that are trying to get into a Bitcoin role?
Yeah, I think that you just have to, it's a combination of a few things. It's hard work and putting yourself out there and like spending the time to create something, because that's something that the Bitcoin community rewards highly compared to other industries, is somebody just creating something and putting it out there, and trying to help improve Bitcoin, because that's what everybody's doing, right? Since there's no CEO of Bitcoin, everybody's working on their own little piece that says, you know, I'm trying to improve Bitcoin in this way. And so putting that out there is really great. And that's the first step to take. It also helps if that's not just the same thing that everybody else is doing. Like I think there's a lot of people who think that, you know, going on Bitcoin Twitter, creating a anonymous account with HODL in the name and tweeting toxic maximalist things is like helping Bitcoin. And it's really not. It helps to some extent, right? But not that much. So like, go build something and actually create something, like make long form content, put some thought into it. Think about what other people aren't doing that you could be doing. And then people will see value in that. And companies like Casa, like other Bitcoin companies, are looking for people who are already proving that they're providing value. And so that will really help, I think, in terms of just making a name for yourself and having something to point to. But the second thing that I totally can't discount at all is luck. Like, I got lucky that I had such a great group for that hackathon of smart people that I worked with. I got lucky that we won. I got lucky that, after that, Casa reached out and, I was able to join that team. So there's a lot of lucky pieces in there, but hard work like puts you in the right position to take advantage of luck when it happens. So I think that's the way that I think about it. And it's interesting because now I'm the CEO at Casa, but I wasn't originally the CEO. And so that's another thing where it's like hard work and kind of just circumstances totally beyond my control have like put me in that position. And so now it's to the point where it's like, okay, now I'm going to work my hardest at my current role to make Casa and Bitcoin as great as I can.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. You put yourself in the way of luck, and it will find you. So right, let's talk about Casa. Describe to us what Casa is, and then we will talk through the services that you provide and the new releases that you've got coming out.
Yeah, definitely. So really, we made Casa because of the same exact problem that I've kind of mentioned a few times here, which is that private keys are a terrible user experience to manage. But when you have it done right, they're incredibly empowering to people. And so this idea of the sovereign individual and of digital sovereignty and being able to have real ownership through private keys of things like your wealth through Bitcoin or your identity one day, your data, your end-to-end encrypted communication, all of that is controlled by private keys. And so we really see private keys as the foundation for a new internet that's getting built over the next 10 years. And a lot of that is going to be built on Bitcoin. But like I said, private keys suck to use. And if you lose a private key, you lose everything. And so we started Casa to say, let's make this easier for the average person, because right now, this experience of being a sovereign individual is limited to the cypherpunks. It's limited to the people who are highly technical and who really built this from the start. So how do we bring this to regular people so that they can take advantage of all these benefits that is currently just only really accessible to a small group? And so, when we look at that, that's why it's so interesting that what we're working on, because we actually really believe this is one of the critical pieces for Bitcoin mass adoption, is allowing anybody to manage their own private keys and to do it in a way that is not risky and is user friendly. And so that's why, we're super focused on private key management as what we're building. And it takes a lot of education because people aren't used to this. We've grown up for hundreds of years. Civilization has used banks. Like we originally, I've been thinking about this recently and kind of want to do some more research on this to maybe write a longer blog post on it or something like that. But originally, people carried around their money on their person, or they maybe stored it in their house. Like, they had the seashells, which they carried on the necklaces and all that, like the Nick Szabo Origins of Money post where it's really interesting. He goes into how money was started. And then we had gold coins, and people were carrying around gold coins, and turns out carrying around a ton of coins is heavy. So banks were started. And because it was just way more convenient to let somebody else hold your gold coins and to give you a paper certificate that said, this person has this many coins. And then people started trading those paper certificates around in order to pay for goods, and the banking system is born. Well, what's interesting about Bitcoin is that suddenly self-custody, being able to hold your Bitcoin yourself, becomes just as easy as using a piece of paper. And so we've gone from this kind of layer 2 money of trusting other people down to back to a very usable form of digital layer one base money in Bitcoin. And so we believe it's really a part of human nature to want to have that control over your money. But people have been conditioned for so long that it's the convenient thing to do to give it to somebody else. And we think that actually Bitcoin can significantly change this and give us the capability to have that real ownership again.
Yeah, it's such a again, this lady I was trying to explain Bitcoin to today and help understand it. Last time she came to visit a week ago to say hi to the kids, and that we got into the conversation, and I lent her Internet of Money by Andreas's first book.
Yeah.
And she bought it back today and passed it back. And today I've passed her the little Bitcoin book to take that away with her. And the first thing she said was, I was shocked at how quickly I read that book. I couldn't put it down.
Yeah.
And how interesting I found it was learning about money. And this comes up time and time again.
Yeah.
And Breedlove talks about this, just keep asking the question, what is money? What is money is the rabbit. Keep following the rabbit down the rabbit hole and just let him take you, 5 times a day. Ask, what is money? What is money? What is money?
Right.
And it's so true that it's a primal instinct. It's intuitive. And that I think Bitcoin is intuition, and it will find you at some stage when you're ready. So it's just fascinating to watch this, to study it, to see how it affects different people, and help people as well, which is what we're all ultimately here for. You guys, this is why you started a company, to solve a problem that you saw a need to in the free market, to try and help people. So what are the different, what are the layers of service of Casa? Talk us through the onboarding experience, where we can find you, how we interact with it, and how we ultimately go from the floor is yours.
Yeah. So I'll give before we go into here's every single little offering and what the pricing is and all of that. I think what's interesting to understand is some of the philosophy behind the way that we approach this. So we looked at what existed in the Bitcoin industry when Casa was really getting off the ground in early 2018. And what we realized was 2 things. So Bitcoin originally was obviously made by cypherpunks and engineers, which is great. That's how it had to start. But they don't always build with this great UX in mind. And so they're really on the UX side. If you wanted a smooth user experience, you had to go to an exchange like Coinbase. And in order to do that, you have to give up control of your private keys. And so before Casa, there was really 2 alternatives. It was either you chose the really difficult technical side in order to have ownership of your private keys, or you went with an exchange, because that was the easy way and a good user experience. And really what we're trying to do with Casa is be the ramp from the exchange to the fully sovereign individual. And so the way that we've structured our offering is to be that ramp. So at the very most basic free level, Casa is just a mobile wallet, but it's a mobile wallet where you don't have to worry about your seed phrase. So you are fully in control. The private keys are stored on your phone's secure element. Casa does not have access to those keys, unlike using an exchange app. But we don't, unlike other apps, when you sign up, when you first open up the app, we don't say, write down this 24-word phrase and keep it somewhere safe. We just create the key on your device, and then we encrypt it and back it up to the cloud. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, putting a key on the cloud, that's bad, right? And yes, it is if you're storing a large amount of money. But when you're first getting into Bitcoin, you've got a couple $100 or maybe even less worth of Bitcoin. And so you don't need a hardware wallet. You don't need to worry about all these different things. And so what we've done is given you the best level of security for your level of holdings. And then what we do is once you cross, I believe we have it set at like $1,000 worth of Bitcoin, we start saying, hey, you should think about getting more security for your Bitcoin. And so that's when you can start getting into some of the other Casa offerings, which are around Multisig. And the whole idea behind Multisig is to make basically key management and the risk of holding your own private keys, make key management easier and make that risk lower. And so instead, when you have, for example, 3 keys protecting your Bitcoin or 5 keys protecting your Bitcoin, depending on what level of Casa product you're using, you don't have to worry about losing 1 key anymore. Sometimes you don't even have to worry about losing 2 keys because you still have the other keys that are protecting your funds. And so this means that it lets people be humans. It lets people make mistakes. So, we can't build Bitcoin on the assumption that nobody will ever make a mistake, which is how it works when you have a single private key with the seed phrase. And so that's something that we've really worked to build into our product is let people be human, let them make mistakes. And this is basically like graduation levels of security. So you start with your free mobile wallet. You can even buy Bitcoin directly to that wallet in your app. So you could in our app, so you can totally get started with Bitcoin from the beginning with Casa. And then as you start to get more Bitcoin, or as your Bitcoin goes up in value, we help you get better with your security and move you further and further along the path towards this sovereign individual future where you are really in full control of everything that's most important to you, which is like your money and your identity, etc.
Very cool. I want to touch on something there. You've got a Fiat Onramp, which not a great deal of wallets do offer that service. So that's very cool. How is that built? How does that work? Who's the where do you get the liquidity from? Do you have like one exchange that you get to, or could you just round out that?
Yeah, right now we use a company called Wire, who we partner with, and they basically provide the liquidity. They act as the money transmitter, handle all the regulatory and KYC side, because what was important for us is for people who don't want to use this feature, we don't want to KYC them. We don't want to, have to take all of this personal data about people. And even for the people who do want to buy Bitcoin, Casa doesn't want to store their personal data. And so this is something where we work with a third party on this, and we've basically taken this third party's tools and APIs and built a really nice experience around it within the Casa app. And this lets people just skip the exchange entirely. So rather than having to say to your friend who is going to start buying some Bitcoin, well, first you need to go to the exchange and you need to sign up there, then buy your Bitcoin, but then you need another wallet, and then you got to write down your seed phrase for that other wallet, and then make sure you keep it safe, don't lose it or you lose all your money, but go ahead and move your funds over from the exchange to that wallet, and then you'll be a real Bitcoiner. And so what we are trying to do there is just let people start the right way from the beginning and make it just as easy an experience as buying Bitcoin with Cash App or with Coinbase or any other exchange out there, but do it in a way where that Bitcoin gets sent straight to their self-custody, where only they hold the keys. It's not the solution for somebody who is trading Bitcoin full time, right? But it's the solution for the hodler, the person that's just stacking sats and using it as savings technology.
Yeah, well, the noob, right? I think that's cool. Do you have a set it and forget it option as well for auto buys?
We don't yet. We want to, but we're not quite there yet. So we just released this feature in full, really, in October. And so it's a pretty new feature for us, and we want to get to the recurring buys though, because all of us on the team do recurring buys. We're big fans of that, and we think it's an important part of saving your money in Bitcoin. So
yeah, okay, cool. So where is this available? Is this I'm thinking the only catch right now for people listening might be it's only available in one certain country or on one certain platform. Could you like where we'd be able to go and look at this?
yeah, so Casa as a product from the Bitcoin storage and custody, self-custody side of things is available anywhere in the world, because in the end, the user, are the one who is holding the keys. And so Casa doesn't have any sort of country by country regulatory restrictions there. We have clients and customers all over the world today. So, anybody anywhere can use that part of our product. On the actual buying Bitcoin side, there it gets a little more nuanced, because that's when you start to get into the regulation side of things, right? So we have the ability to do bank transfer purchases in the US only. And then we have the ability to do debit card and Apple Pay purchases in a lot more countries around the world. And so that includes a lot of countries in the EU, the UK, some in kind of Central and South America, Asia, Australia. So there's a much broader range of support for the Apple Pay debit card side. The downsides to that are just that there's lower limits on the total amount of Bitcoin that you can buy. And the fee tends to be a little bit higher because you're actually paying a credit card processing fee. So we want to roll out that kind of bank purchase capability to more people around the world, but have to take it piece by piece because there is kind of a regulatory piece to it.
Yeah. Well, that's very cool. And what's next? What are you guys thinking? What are the big plans? Is there anything you're allowed to discuss with us, or is there some top secret works going on behind the scene?
Yeah, so we have quite a few different things that we're really focused on, but it all centers around managing private keys. And so we are really focused on how do we make private key management and self-custody of Bitcoin easier and more safe for everybody. No matter how much Bitcoin you're holding, we have people that hold everywhere from $50 worth of Bitcoin to millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin with Casa. And that's why we provide all of those different levels of security within our product. And so what we are trying to do is think about what are the needs of different types of people holding different amounts of Bitcoin, but all centered around how do we make it as easy as possible and as safe as possible for people to have real ownership here. And so I guess some of the things that wrap into that are improving our service offering. So we have a really great service offering that we're always working to make better for people who are storing larger amounts of Bitcoin. And so we work with people that are, we have people come to us that are looking to make an investment of 100K or more dollars in Bitcoin and say, how do I secure this? I've never owned Bitcoin before. And we have a whole service team where they can actually get on the phone with them, walk them through everything, and make sure that they fully understand how to be a sovereign individual, how to own their private keys. That was something that we really realized was missing as well. Aside from the user experience side of things, we really realized that service element was missing from the Bitcoin ecosystem. And so that's something that we offer a really hands-on version of to our higher tier clients. And we're always working to improve that and make that a better experience for those clients. And then some of the the product side things that we're thinking about are like inheritance. So inheritance is something that is a unique problem to people self-custodying their Bitcoin. And so far, we've rolled out a feature to our highest tier clients that has an inheritance offering that's really robust and has a lot of hands-on work from our team built into it. And that's something that, because we put so much time and learning into it, we're actually able to take what we've learned there and bring it to our other customers and give them a great experience with setting up an inheritance protocol or setup for their family. And so that's something that we're focused on bringing to a lot more of our customers over the next year. We're looking at ways to make private key management simpler, how to make it simpler to interact with the hardware wallet, to make sure that you're using it correctly, that it's easy to set up, all that kind of thing. Because we've taken a lot of steps to make things easier for the average person, there is still some learning curve where you still have to learn a bit about what is this hardware wallet that looks like a USB stick, and I have to do things like confirm addresses on it. And so there's always things around that we really want to try and make easier for the average person, because in our view, one, all of that translates into being a thing that is actually good and empowering for the average person. And two, it helps Bitcoin adoption on a mass scale. Because where we don't want to end up is if we don't do this, if we don't make it easier for people to manage their private keys, you end up in a world where you've recreated the banking system just on top of Bitcoin, because it's super easy to hold your funds on an exchange, and suddenly the majority of Bitcoin, after there's mass adoption around the world, is stored on different exchanges, which just really hampers the ability of Bitcoin to be successful. So I think that's something that, it's kind of a long and winding answer there for a few of the different things we're focused on, but it all circles back to making private key security better.
And I want to, multisig is something that a lot of people, it's been a big topic recently, and it's going to get bigger because, I mean, let's face it, if people have been here 4 or 5 years and they've stacked all through this bear winter, and all of a sudden the price of Bitcoin, here we are, we're almost all-time highs. Many of us here believe, give it another 2 months, we'll be pushing 30,000, and then going into 2021, we could be, by mid 2021, we could be 100,000. People's hardware wallets are going to start getting heavy, and people are going to start losing a bit of sleep. And this all comes down to like this private key management and what you're talking about, multisig. And this is new language for a lot of people. And for a lot of people that have these hardware wallets, have been here for 2 or 3 years, this is the next step. And many of us in the space at this stage down the rabbit hole in the journey, a lot of people think that the Bitcoin is on that little USB stick.
Yeah.
This is a bit of a head turner for a lot of people, and it's something I had to come to terms with myself. However many years ago it was like, huh? What do you mean it's not on here? So could you just try and explain to people that might be thinking, what the hell Princey talking about, for those that are finding themselves in that position, where the Bitcoin is, what that hard wallet acts as, and then how you guys can incorporate that into a multi-signature setup.
Yeah. So the Bitcoin, like you said, is not on the hardware. It's really on the ledger of the network, which is distributed to all of the different nodes and miners. They each keep a copy of it themselves, right? But if you want to think about this in a physical form, it's kind of like, pretend the Bitcoin is in a vault, And the hardware wallet that you have is actually just the key to open up that vault, which lets you do what you want with that Bitcoin. And so when you take it back to kind of the Bitcoin network view of things, the private key cryptographically is what allows you to prove your ownership of the Bitcoin to the rest of the network and say, I am cryptographically the owner here and allowed to send it to X other person. And so it's really, it's about what is written on that decentralized ledger in all of the nodes and participants in the network. And then your hardware is the key to accessing that. So then when you look at this from a multi-sig perspective, I'm glad you brought this up because we get this question a lot. People are like, okay, so now that I've got my multi-sig set up, how much Bitcoin is on each hardware wallet? So if I lose one hardware wallet, how much Bitcoin do I lose? And obviously that's not the case. The Bitcoin is on the network, and the way that multi-sig works is that instead of needing one key to actually move that Bitcoin, you need more than one key to move that Bitcoin. But what's interesting is that instead of saying, oh, I've got 3 keys now and I need all 3 of them to move my Bitcoin, you can say, I've got 5 keys and I only need 3 of them to move my Bitcoin. And so then you can choose any 3 of those 5 that you want to use to prove, yes, I own this Bitcoin and I want to send it to this location. So then the benefit there, like I was saying earlier, is just that you can actually lose 1, 2 of those 5 keys and still be able to move your funds. And the nice thing about Casa is that we make it really easy for you to swap out a key if you lose it. So let's say you lose 1 key, you realize you've lost it. Instead of freaking out like, oh, might have lost all my Bitcoin, I need to go find my seed phrase and hope it works when I type it into a new hardware wallet, you just say, forget that hardware wallet. I've got my other 4 that are still available, and I'm going to add a 5th and then transfer the funds to this new fully 5-key protected wallet once again. And you're back to kind of full health, you could call it. So that's at a really basic level how multisig works. And multisig as a term is kind of difficult for people to wrap their minds around because a signature is a difficult concept. And so another way to think about it is just to think about it as like, about 2FA, right? And so 2FA means you need 2 factors to authenticate a login to a website or something. So multisig is like 3FS, like 3-factor security if you have 3 keys, or it's 5FS if it's 5-factor security for 5 total keys. And so this is something that's just a slight tweak on the way we talk about it that we've been kind of playing with, but it's something that I think might help to explain this better to the average person.
Yeah, it's a tough one to get your head around as especially as newbies or half newbies coming into the space. But what I like about what you said at the beginning, well, halfway through the show there, about how you offer the service of a gradual journey. You come in, you got the app, you can buy with fiat, you don't have to worry about the seed phrases at that point. And then after $1,000, whatever it is, then you get the push notification, guys, time to step up. And then after a certain amount of time, hey guys, how about multi-signature? It's a nice educational flow to it. I think it sounds really cool.
Yeah, and I think that's something that the educational part is a big part of Casa's DNA and mission. Like we realize that, and I think a lot of Bitcoiners do a great job of realizing this, that you have to educate people in order to help them make the mental leaps necessary for them to really understand Bitcoin and not just be in it because they're going to get a short-term investment boost. And so there's a lot of people that work on this from the angle of the economic side of like talking about why Bitcoin is such a great improvement on money economically, Where Casa tends to focus is talking about it from a more technical and security and individual sovereignty side, and educating people about that angle of Bitcoin, because there's a lot of people already that are doing the first one around the 21 million cap, no inflation, etc. But the other side, the sovereignty side, is just as interesting. There's a little bit less people talking about it, and so that's where Casa has really chosen to focus.
Yeah. There was a question there. Damn it, it's just escaped me. But I wanted to ask you, where has it gone? It'll come back to me. I always want to ask people on the show, towards the end of the show, if you had one orange pill left to give to someone, who would you give that to and why?
Oh gosh. Probably my parents. I mean, I've already kind of worked on my wife and my friends, and so they're kind of done. They're already on our side, right? But probably my parents, because they don't really know. They'd probably be open to it. They don't really know that much about Bitcoin, though. They kind of feel like it's a little bit out of their technical range. But growing up, they were the ones that taught me about the value of hard work, the value of saving money. And so that's something that I think, if I had one orange pill left, I'd probably give it to them.
That's a great answer. And I think about that as well. It's like, you guys instilled all of this in me. Why do you roll your eyes when I tell you about it? Why don't you listen to the podcasts? And you're a CEO of a company. It's like, guys, look, this is my thing. This is what I do. Just show an ounce of interest, just a little bit. It's pretty crazy. I remember the question I did want to ask you. It was about other common questions from users around multisig. You mentioned this is one thing that people kind of struggle with, not understanding where their Bitcoin is, and is it all in? Then is it all in one vault? Is there any other question, like what's question number 2 or 3 on the list that people are asking you about that you could share with us and try and help people come to terms with?
Yeah, I think an interesting question that we get from a lot of people who have been in Bitcoin for a while is, why do you not need your seed phrase with Casa? And so that's something that freaks a lot of people out, to be honest. And there's other people in the space who advocate multisig, but they also say you need to keep all of your seed phrases. For us, it's one of those things where we think that seed phrases are just an unnatural user experience that are generally a blocker to mass adoption of Bitcoin, because people aren't used to securing a bunch of words on a piece of paper. You can't even put it into a password manager kind of thing. People are just getting used to using a password manager, and you're telling them you got to put your seed phrase on paper. You can't put it on a password manager. And so we get asked why no seed phrases by a lot of Bitcoiners. And what it really comes down to is just that when you have a multi-sig model, it no longer matters if you lose one key. And so you don't have to worry about key recovery anymore. It becomes about the resilience more of the entire system of keys rather than the resilience of a single key. And so it's just, for one, it's an extra step that is generally unnecessary for people, and is not a great user experience. But 2, and this is a little bit less of a issue in our book, because I think that people tend to overestimate this risk, but having a seed phrase lying around is a bit of a risk from a theft side of things, because if somebody finds that seed phrase, they can actually copy it down without you ever knowing. And so in that scenario, one of the keys in your multisig is compromised without you knowing about it. Whereas if you only have your hardware key, they have to actually take that hardware key, in order to have that key. And you would know, hey, I'm now missing this key. I need to mark it as compromised within Casa and rotate it out for a new one. So and we have a whole blog post about this. And this is something where a lot of people, disagree with our stance on it. But for us, it's something that we think is an unnecessary part of Bitcoin's past. If you want to keep your seed phrase, if you're a Bitcoiner who's always kept their seed phrase, we have nothing against that. Some people get a little bit confused and they're like, so I can't keep my seed phrase if I use Casa? No, like you are the one controlling your keys. If you want to keep your seed phrase, that's totally up to you and you can. But we've built our system to be enabling of people not keeping their seed phrase, because we think that's what's going to help enable this next wave of people to really become sovereign individuals, to manage their own keys. It's one less thing to worry about. So yeah, I think that's the second biggest question that we get asked, or maybe they're out of order or whatever. That's just one of the big questions that we get asked that I think is important to put out there. And then I think maybe the last question that we get asked a lot, and we get asked this frequently on like Twitter, is why do we charge the amounts that we do for our products? Like Casa generally is, we have our free offering, but like for the main core multisig products, we're charging for it. And yes, there are multisig products out there that are free. You can do it yourself and build it all yourself and connect it to your own node and everything like that. And that's awesome for that type of person who wants to do that. But for Casa, we have put a ton of work into the service side and to the user experience side to really build this as a very premium and great product for managing your Bitcoin. And so in order for us to continue offering that level of service and that level of user experience, we need to charge for it. We need to build a real sustainable business here. And so that's something that I think we get a lot of questions about. But what's kind of funny is even people that sign up for our higher paid tiers, which have the client service, which have the really hands-on white glove level of interaction, plus the high level of security, they'll finish getting set up with Casa and they'll be like, I thought this was expensive when I first bought it. And now I've realized that it's pretty cheap for what I'm getting. And what I'm getting is a lot of help from you guys and real peace of mind about my Bitcoin safety. And that's just something that I think is, we hear it over and over again. It's like, I have so much more peace of mind now that I've got everything set up with Casa. And so that's always one of the most rewarding things that we can get out of this, is when we have customers that come in and say, you took all the anxiety I had around managing a hardware wallet and just wiped it away. I can sleep well at night again. And so that's really cool. So anyway, those are the three big questions I would say that I can think of off the top of my head. I'm sure there's a bunch of other questions that I've missed, and our support and service teams would probably be like, yeah, you missed questions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But yeah, those are the ones that I can think of that are important to answer.
And how are you guys thinking about, I think we talked about this before we started recording, the big run up and an influx of business. Are you guys set for this? Because in 2017, we saw a lot of companies were very much deluged, put under pressure. A few of them broke, couldn't handle it. We won't name names. So
some of them still break
weekly.
Yeah.
Probably daily going forward, and might be down more days than they're up during the week. But again, we won't name names. How do you feel about that? Because I feel we're set up for just such a massive influx. How do you think you guys are set for handling that? And what are the kind of contingency plans you have in place? But more importantly, what's the 20K party going to look like around at Casa? You can answer those questions in whichever order you want.
Yeah. Okay, so I think well, what's interesting about the bear and bull market cycle is that bear markets are super quiet, and it's when a lot of the building gets done. And then during the bull market time is when you're just trying to keep up with volume, basically, as a business. And so what we've done over the last year is really make sure that we spent some time working on our internal systems, and we built them up so that they are much more scalable to handle a large influx of customers when we need to, because that's something that you have to be able to provide a good experience for people no matter what period of Bitcoin's life cycle you're in. And you also want to be in a position where if somebody's coming in to try using Bitcoin for the first time, you don't want to give that person a bad experience because your service is down because you've had so many new customers coming in the door. And so it's something that we have been really working on and preparing. And for Casa, that means not just preparing on the technical infrastructure side and like the code side of things, but also preparing on the service side of things. And so we've put a bunch of effort in over the last year to really optimizing and ensuring that our service can handle a lot higher volume of people without reducing the quality of the service that we offer, because that's one of the most important things for us as a company, is maintaining that really high bar for quality of service for all of our customers. And so we've put a bunch of work into that over the last year. Super proud of what we've done as a team. And not all of that comes out as these flashy new features, but it pays off in spades when you get to a bull market time where you really have to be ready to handle that larger amount of volume. So that's something that we've been really focused on and have spent a lot of time on over the last year. And we'll see if it pays off. And maybe next year things get so wild that even the early preparation that we did isn't enough. But if that's the case, I think it'll be probably a good thing for Bitcoin as a whole, and will be affecting just about everybody in the industry. So,
and you'll be looking to hire more people, which is also good for the Bitcoin space. Yep. All right, so 20K party. What's the plan? We going streaking in the park or what? What's the
we'll have to find something that is pandemic appropriate. So probably Zoom related. But I think that the 20K party for us is just, it's everybody at Casa really loves what we're doing, and so it's taken some time to celebrate what we've been able to accomplish over the last year, but then also just getting back to building, because 20K party just means that 30K is probably just around the corner, and with it a whole lot of new people coming into Bitcoin. And so we want to make sure that those people have the best experience and education right out of the gate as possible.
And what about personally? Yeah, have you got something nice lined up? Are you a cigar man, champagne, red wine, quiet beer?
I think that I personally, I get a little excited about the price, and I'll brag about it to some of my friends who I told to buy it at like a long time ago and haven't, or something. And I've actually luckily managed to orange pill a few of them within the last like month or two. So they're along for the ride now, which is fun. But generally for me, I think it's exciting, and it's a temporary time to be like, man, this is really cool to see where Bitcoin's at. But for me personally, it's like where I really get the value out of it is seeing the things that we've built as a company, seeing things that are being worked on around the industry that are really cool. And I think that that's where I get a lot of the reward, is kind of that internal reward, I guess. And so it's a little boring, but I don't have anything super crazy planned. But I think that it's something that is just a general feeling of excitement and happiness at what we've been able to accomplish so far.
Very cool, man. Are we going to see you at the 100K party? Are you putting your name on the list?
Yeah. Okay. So for
Michael
100K,
Saylor's
I mean,
gift?
obviously we're going to have a huge party. Like that's different than 20K. We've been to 20K before, or maybe just below it, but 100K, obviously, let's build the Citadel.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, where can people come and find you personally on Twitter and Casa, obviously? And where can you point people to come and find more about you, Casa, your work, the blog, and anything else you guys are putting out?
Yeah, definitely. So me personally, I don't tweet a ton. I tweet sometimes. Twitter.com/Neuman, and that's Neuman. For Casa, we are at Casa Hodl, HODL on Twitter. And then our website is keys, KEYS.casa, CASA. So you can go there and on our website has a lot of information for people. It's got links to our blog. It's got information on our product. We even have for the more advanced people who want to dig in on all of our security design and assumptions that we've made as we're building up the Casa security system. We have a how it works section that's like basically almost like a white paper, except a lot easier to read. And it goes through 40 different considerations that we took into account when we were first building everything out before we launched the product. And so that's something that I think for more advanced people who really want to dig in is also interesting and available on our website. And then lastly, like I said, we really put a premium on service. And so you can go on our website and just book a call with our client service team right from there to understand and ask any questions that you have about how Casa works, how Multisig works, how to manage your private keys. We really want to have that personal interaction and personal face for people. And so you can book a call with us on our website too.
Cool. Well, Nick, it's been great getting to chat with you, getting to know you a little bit. It sounds really cool what you guys are doing. Well done, and looking forward to 2021, man. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. I really appreciate it.
And stop recording.